It was just an ordinary Tuesday when I found that note in my son's room. She's only good for taking care of the cats. 35 years of marriage, 3 children raised, an entire life devoted to this family. And that's how they saw me. I packed my things, left a note on the table, and walked out the door, not knowing I was about to discover who I truly was. She only serves to take care of the cats anyway. Those 8 words on that crumpled piece of paper changed everything. I'm standing here in my son's messy bedroom, holding this note like it's evidence of a crime. And I guess in a way, it is. The crime of 35 years of my life, disappearing into laundry loads and grocery lists, and picking up after people who apparently think I'm nothing more than a live-in pet sitter. My hands are shaking, not from anger yet, that'll come later. Right now it's just shock, the kind that makes your whole body feel like it's made of glass and someone just threw a rock at your chest. Tuesday morning. That's what this was supposed to be. Just another Tuesday morning helping my grown son organize his disaster of a room, because that's what mothers do, right? We show up, we clean up, we shut up. I fold the paper carefully, smooth out the wrinkles like I'm preserving something precious instead of something that just destroyed me. The handwriting is definitely his. That sloppy scrawl I helped him practice when he was 7, forming letters on lined paper while I sat beside him at the kitchen table, patient as a saint. She only serves to take care of the cats anyway. I wonder who he was talking to. I wonder how many people know that's all his mother is worth. The cats, Mittens and Shadow, and the old orange tabby we call Rusty. They're downstairs right now, probably wondering where their morning treats are. 35 years of marriage, 3 children, countless family dinners, birthday parties, graduation ceremonies, and I've been reduced to cat duty. The woman who feeds the cats, the woman who cleans their litter boxes, the woman who exists so everyone else can have clean clothes and hot meals and never worry about running out of toilet paper. I'm 58 years old. When did that happen? When did I become this invisible woman who only serves to take care of things? I catch my reflection in the mirror above my son's dresser and hardly recognize myself. Gray hair pulled back in the same ponytail I've worn for 15 years because it's practical. No makeup, because who am I trying to impress while scrubbing bathrooms? Clothes that are comfortable but shapeless, chosen for functionality rather than beauty. When did I stop trying to be beautiful? The house is quiet. Robert left for work hours ago. Same routine for 3 decades. Kiss on the cheek that feels more like habit than affection. Coffee from the pot I made before he got up. Lunch packed in the same brown bag I've been using since Clinton was president. The kids are all adults now, supposedly independent, but they still call when they need something. Never to ask how I'm doing, never to just talk. Always needing something fixed, something found, something handled by mom. I sit on the edge of my son's unmade bed and try to remember the last time someone in this family asked me what I wanted. Really asked. Not what I wanted to cook for dinner or where I wanted to go grocery shopping, but what I actually wanted for myself. I can't think of a single time. Not one. My phone buzzes. Text from my youngest daughter. Mom, can you pick up my dry cleaning? I have back-to-back meetings. Of course you do, sweetheart. Of course you need mom to handle the things you can't fit into your important schedule. I stare at the message without responding. For the first time in my life, I don't immediately start figuring out how to fit someone else's needs into my day. The note is still in my hand. She only serves to take care of the cats anyway. I imagine him saying it, maybe to his girlfriend, maybe to his friends, probably laughing. Poor mom, she doesn't really do anything important, just takes care of the cats, just keeps the house running, just makes sure everyone else can live their lives without worrying about the details, just exists in the background of everyone else's story. I stand up slowly, legs stiff from kneeling on the floor, sorting through his clothes. 35 years of kneeling on floors, scrubbing, folding, organizing other people's messes while my own dreams collected dust in corners I forgot existed. When was the last time I did something for myself? When was the last time I wanted something that wasn't about making someone else's life easier? The house feels different now, not like home, like a museum of my own disappearance. Every room holds evidence of my erasure. The kitchen where I cook meals no one particularly appreciates. The living room where I dust furniture and vacuum carpets so my family can be comfortable while they ignore me. The bedroom I share with a man who talks to me about bills and schedules, but never asks about my dreams. I walk downstairs and the cats come running, just like he said. Mittens whines around my legs, purring, and I realize this might be the most genuine affection I get in any given day. At least they're happy to see me. At least they notice when I'm gone for more than a few hours. At least someone in this house would miss me if I disappeared. But I won't disappear. Not anymore. I'm going to leave. The thought hits me like cold water. I'm going to leave. Not forever, not necessarily, but I'm going to go somewhere else and remember who I used to be before I became the woman who only serves to take care of the cats. Before I became the invisible wife, the taken-for-granted mother, the woman who exists to make everyone else's life function smoothly. I make coffee, just for me. Not the whole pot, just one cup in my favorite mug, the blue one with the chip, on the handle that I never use because I'm always making coffee for other people in the good mugs. I sit at the kitchen table and try to remember what I liked to do before marriage, before children, before my entire identity became about serving other people's needs. I wanted to paint. That feels like a lifetime ago, but I remember how it felt to hold a brush, to watch colors blend on canvas, to create something beautiful just because I could. I was good at it too. My art teacher in college said I had real talent, that I should consider making it more than a hobby. But then I met Robert, and painting seemed selfish when there were practical things to focus on. Career, marriage, babies, mortgages, life. I wanted to travel, see mountains and oceans and cities where nobody knew my name or expected me to have dinner ready by 6. I used to dream about staying in small bed and breakfasts, walking through art museums at my own pace, eating in restaurants where I could order whatever I wanted without worrying about what everyone else would prefer. I wanted to matter, not as someone's wife or mother or the keeper of the household schedule, but as myself, as a person with thoughts and feelings and dreams that didn't revolve around other people's comfort. When did I stop mattering to myself? The coffee tastes different when you're drinking it for yourself instead of rushing through it before starting the morning routine of making everyone else's day possible. I savor it. I sit in the silence and let myself feel angry. Really angry. Not the quick flash of irritation I usually suppress, but deep burning anger at 35 years of being taken for granted. My phone rings, Robert's ringtone. I stare at it, watching his name flash on the screen. He probably forgot something. Probably needs me to handle something he can't be bothered to remember. For the first time in our marriage, I let it go to voicemail. The silence after it stops ringing feels like freedom. I go upstairs and open my closet. Clothes for cleaning house, clothes for running errands, clothes for family functions, where I blend into the background and make sure everyone else has what they need. When did I stop owning clothes that made me feel beautiful? When did I start dressing like a woman who only exists to serve other people's needs? There's a small suitcase on the top shelf, dusty from lack of use. The only trips this family takes are to visit Robert's mother or the kids' school events. Practical trips where I spend most of my time making sure everyone else is comfortable and fed and has clean clothes. I can't remember the last time I packed for a trip that was about what I wanted to see or do. I pull down the suitcase and dust it off. It's smaller than I remember, but maybe that's perfect. Maybe I don't need much to start over. Maybe starting small is exactly what I need to do. My hands are steady now as I fold clothes I actually like, clothes that make me feel like a person instead of a function. A few books I've been meaning to read but never had time for because someone always needed something. My old sketch pad, buried under years of utility bills and school permission slips. The pencils are probably dull, but they'll sharpen. I write a note. Not an explanation, not an apology, just facts. Gone for a while. Need to think. Take care of yourselves. I don't sign it love, because right now, I'm not sure what love means when it only flows in one direction. I leave it on the kitchen counter, next to the coffee maker, where someone will eventually find it when they realize their morning coffee isn't magically waiting for them. The cats follow me to the door, sensing something different. I kneel down and pet them, these creatures who at least appreciate my existence, even if it's only because I feed them. You'll be fine, I whisper. Someone else can learn to take care of you for a while. Maybe that's the lesson my family needs. Maybe they need to discover that the woman who only serves to take care of the cats actually serves to make their entire lives possible. I put the suitcase in my car and sit behind the wheel for a moment. I don't know where I'm going. I don't have a plan. For 35 years, I've had a plan for every day, every meal, every family obligation. Right now, I'm planning nothing except to drive away from this house where I've been invisible for so long, I forgot I existed. The engine starts and I back out of the driveway. The house looks the same as always, neat and maintained because that's what I do. I keep everything looking perfect on the outside, but I won't be there tonight to make dinner, to do the laundry, to feed the cats. Someone else will have to figure it out. Someone else will have to serve for once. I drive through town, past the grocery store where I shop every Wednesday, past the dry cleaner where I pick up Robert's shirts, past the school where I volunteered for every fundraiser and field trip for 15 years. Past the life I built around everyone else's needs while forgetting to build anything for myself. At the highway entrance, I pause. North or south, east or west? It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm choosing. For the first time in decades, I'm making a decision based on what I want instead of what someone else needs. The woman who only serves to take care of the cats is driving away. The woman who remains is someone I'm about to meet for the first time in 35 years. The ocean saved me. I didn't know that's where I was heading until I smelled the salt. Air 3 hours into my drive. Something deep inside pulled me toward water, toward horizons that stretched beyond the careful boundaries I'd lived within for so long. The GPS had been suggesting routes back toward familiar territory, but I kept ignoring its polite recommendations, following signs that promised something I'd never seen before. Millbrook Cove, population 2,147. A weathered sign welcomed me to a place that looked like it had been painted by someone who understood that beauty doesn't have to be perfect. Houses in faded blues and yellows lined narrow streets that curved with the coastline instead of fighting it. Fishing boats bobbed in a harbor where seagulls called to each other in voices that sounded like laughter. I parked near the water and sat in my car, windows down, breathing air that tasted like freedom. For 35 years, I'd lived 20 minutes from the nearest beach, but somehow never made time to visit. Always too busy with someone else's schedule, someone else's needs. The waves rolled in and out with a rhythm that seemed to whisper that time could move differently here, that maybe I could move differently too. My phone had been ringing for the past hour. Robert, then my oldest son, then my daughter, then Robert again. The display showed 17 missed calls and a growing list of text messages I wasn't ready to read. Let them wonder. Let them figure out where the clean towels are kept and whether there's milk for tomorrow's coffee. Let them discover what it feels like when the woman who only serves to take care of the cats suddenly isn't there to serve. I found a small motel 6 blocks from the water. The Seahorse Inn, painted the color of weathered driftwood with window boxes full of flowers I couldn't name. The elderly woman behind the desk had kind eyes and hands that looked like they'd worked hard for many years, just like mine. How long? Will you be staying? She asked, and I realized I had no idea. I'm not sure, I said, and those words felt revolutionary. When was the last time I'd said I wasn't sure about anything? When was the last time I'd been allowed not to have a plan? That's the best kind of vacation, she said with a smile that suggested she understood more than I was saying. Take your time figuring it out. Room 7 was small but clean, with a window that looked out toward the harbor. I set my suitcase on the bed and stood there for a moment, unsure what to do next. No meals to plan, no schedules to coordinate, no one else's needs to anticipate. The silence felt both terrifying and magnificent. I walked to the window and watched a woman about my age tending to a small garden behind the house next door. She moved with purpose, but without hurry, choosing which flowers to cut for a bouquet, like each decision mattered. When she looked up and caught me watching, she waved as if strangers looking out of motel windows was the most natural thing in the world. That first night, I ate dinner alone in a small restaurant overlooking the Pau water. The waitress was probably my daughter's age, with paint under her fingernails and an easel visible through the kitchen doorway. She recommended the seafood chowder and didn't seem to think it was sad that I was dining by myself. You picked a perfect evening for it, she said. The sunset's going to be spectacular. She was right. I sat at my table long after the chowder was gone, watching the sky turn. Colors I'd forgotten existed while my phone vibrated with increasingly frantic messages I still wasn't ready to face. The other diners gradually left, but the waitress didn't rush me. She just refilled my coffee and let me sit with the dying, light painting everything gold and pink and orange. First time in Millbrook? She asked when she finally brought the check. First time anywhere in a long time, I said, and she nodded like that made perfect sense. I'm Sarah, she said. I teach watercolor classes here on Saturday mornings if you're interested. Nothing fancy, just locals mostly, but we have fun. Watercolor. I hadn't touched a brush in 30 years, but something stirred in my chest at the word. I used to paint, I said. Then you still paint, Sarah said. You just haven't had the chance lately. That night in the small motel room, I finally read the messages. Robert was angry, then worried, then angry again. Where was I? When was I coming home? Who was going to handle his mother's birthday dinner this weekend? The kids were confused and frustrated. Mom, this isn't like you. Mom, we need to talk. Mom, just come home and we'll figure this out. But the message that broke something open inside me was from my youngest son, the one whose note had started this whole journey. Mom, I'm sorry about what you found. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. Please come home. We need you. Need me. Not want me, need me. Still, just about what I could do for them, not who I was as a person. The apology felt genuine, but it was apologizing for hurting me, not for the years of taking me for granted. Not for reducing me to a function instead of seeing me as a human being with dreams and feelings and a whole inner life they'd never bothered to discover. I turned off the phone and set it in the drawer next to the bed. Tomorrow, I would deal with their needs. Tonight, I would sit in this small room where no one expected anything from me and try to remember who I used to be. Saturday morning came with sunshine and the smell of coffee from somewhere nearby. I dressed carefully, not in my usual uniform, of practical clothes, but in a blue blouse I'd packed on impulse, one that brought out my eyes. I walked to the address Sarah had written on a napkin and found myself standing outside a converted garage behind a house that looked like it had been painted by someone who loved color. The watercolor class was exactly what Sarah had promised. Nothing fancy. 6 women ranging from about 40 to 70, sitting around tables covered with newspaper, laughing at their mistakes and celebrating small victories. Margaret, the instructor, was a vibrant 70-year-old who'd moved to Millbrook after retiring from a corporate job she'd hated for 20 years. I always told myself I'd start painting when I had time, she said, showing us how to let colors bleed into each other on wet paper. Then I realized I was never going to have time. I was going to have to make time. My first painting was terrible, a muddy seascape that looked more like a storm drain than the peaceful harbor I was trying to capture. But something happened while I was making it. The familiar feeling of holding a brush, of watching pigment flow across paper, of creating something that hadn't existed before. My hands remembered things my mind had forgotten. Not bad for someone who hasn't painted in 30 years, Margaret said, studying my mess of blue and gray with more kindness than it deserved. How did you know? I asked. Because I hadn't painted in 40 years when I started this class, she said. The hands remember, but they need time to trust again. After class, I walked through downtown Millbrook with my terrible painting tucked under my arm like it was precious. The other women had invited me for coffee, and for the first time in decades, I'd said yes to a social invitation that had nothing to do with my family's needs or Robert's business contacts. Linda owned the small bookstore on Main Street and had started painting as therapy after her divorce. Best thing I ever did for myself, she said, stirring sugar into her latte. The divorce or the painting, I'm not sure which. Ruth had been a nurse for 40 years and was learning to paint flowers because she'd spent so much time around sickness and death that she needed to create something that celebrated life. My children think I've lost my mind, she said with a laugh. They keep asking when I'm going to visit more often, help out with the grandkids. I tell them I'm busy living my own life for once. These women understood something I was just beginning to discover. That a woman's life didn't have to end when her children grew up. That there were ways to matter that had nothing to do with how well you served other people's needs. That maybe, at 58, I wasn't too old to start over. We talked for 3 hours about art and books and travel and dreams deferred, about the courage it takes to choose yourself after decades of choosing everyone else first, about the guilt that comes with that choice and the freedom that comes after the guilt fades. "Where are you staying?" Ruth asked as we prepared to leave. "The Seahorse Inn," I said. "For how long?" I looked at these women who'd welcomed me like an old friend, thought about the painting class next Saturday, about the book Linda had recommended and the craft fair Ruth had mentioned. "I'm not sure," I said, and this time those words felt like possibility instead of confusion. That afternoon, I called home. Robert answered on the first ring. "Thank God," he said. "Where are you? When are you coming home? Everything is falling apart here." "What's falling apart?" I asked, though I could guess. "No one knows where anything is. The cats are acting strange. Your son tried to do laundry and turned everything pink. We can't find the good scissors or the bills or that thing you use to fix the garbage disposal when it makes that noise." "They're all in the same places they've been for years," I said calmly. "You just never had to look before." "This is ridiculous, Helen. You're being ridiculous. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it when you get home. Just come home." "I am home," I said, looking out at the harbor where fishing boats were returning with the day's catch. "I'm more home than I've been in 35 years." The silence on the other end stretched so long, I thought he'd hung up. Finally, he said, "What does that mean?" "It means I found a note in David's room that said, 'I only serve to take care of the cats.' It means I've been thinking about that, and I realized he's right. That's all I've been for years. That's all any of you see when you look at me." "That's not true. When was the last time you asked me what I wanted to do on a weekend instead of telling me what you needed me to handle? When was the last time any of you called just to see how I was feeling? When was the last time you saw me as a person instead of as the woman who makes your lives convenient?" Another long silence. Then quietly, "You're really not coming home?" "Not yet," I said. "Maybe not for a while. I need to figure some things out." "Figure what out?" I watched Sarah setting up an easel on the dock, preparing to paint the evening light on the water. I thought about Margaret and her decision to make time instead of waiting for it. I thought about the woman I used to be and the woman I might still become. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not taking care of everyone else, I said. I need to remember what I want. I need to matter to myself before I can matter to anyone else. That evening, I bought a small canvas and a basic set of watercolors from the art supply store downtown. The young man behind the counter was probably my grandson's age, with kind eyes and paint-stained fingers. "Starting something new?" he asked. "Starting something old," I said. "Something I forgot I loved." I sat up by the window in my motel room and tried to paint the harbor at sunset. This time, instead of fighting the way the colors bled together, I let them flow. I let the orange bleed into the pink and the purple blur into the blue. I stopped trying to control every element and just let the painting become what it wanted to be. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. For the first time in decades, I had created something that belonged only to me, something that existed because I wanted it to exist, not because someone else needed it. I signed my name in the corner, Helen Morrison, and realized I couldn't. Remember the last time I'd written my name on something that mattered? My phone rang again, but I didn't answer. Tomorrow, there would be another watercolor class, another conversation with women who understood the courage it takes to choose yourself. Tomorrow, I would walk on the beach and maybe talk to Sarah about painting techniques. Tomorrow, I would continue, becoming someone I'd forgotten I could be. But tonight, I sat with my imperfect painting and watched the real sunset paint the sky outside my window, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 35 years. I felt proud of myself, not for how well I'd served everyone else, but for how brave I'd been to finally serve myself. 3 months into my new life, Robert showed up. I was sitting at my easel on the dock, painting the morning light on the fishing boats, when I saw his familiar figure walking down Main Street like he owned the place. Same confident stride, same slightly impatient expression he wore when things weren't going according to his plan. My heart started racing, not from love or longing, but from the old familiar anxiety of knowing I was about to disappoint someone who expected me to drop everything and fix their problems. He spotted me before I could pack up and disappear. Helen. Not hello, not how are you, just my name said like an accusation. Robert. I kept painting, adding a touch of yellow to capture the way the sun hit the water. My hands were steadier than I expected. We need to talk. I'm painting. You're being ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous. You've made your point. Now come home. I sat down, my brush, and really looked at him for the first time in months. He looked older, tired in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. His shirt was wrinkled, and there was a stain on his tie that he clearly hadn't noticed. For 35 years, I would have spotted that stain before he left the house and quietly fixed it without him even knowing. What point do you think I've made, Robert? That you're angry about David's stupid comment, that you feel unappreciated. Fine. I appreciate you. The kids appreciate you. There, now can we go home? I almost laughed. Almost. But the sound that came out was sadder than laughter. You think? This is about appreciation, isn't it? Sarah walked by carrying coffee and saw us talking. She waved and I waved back, grateful for the reminder that I had friends here, people who knew me as something other than someone's wife or mother. Who's that? Robert asked, and there was something in his voice I'd never heard before. Not quite jealousy, but surprise, like he'd never considered that I might have a life he didn't know about. A friend. You don't have friends here. You don't know anyone here. I do now. That seemed to throw him more than anything else I'd said. He sat down heavily on the bench beside my easel, and for a moment, he looked genuinely confused instead of just frustrated. "I don't understand what's happening," he said, quieter now. "I don't understand why you left, or why you won't come home, or why you're acting like a completely different person. Maybe because I am a completely different person. Or maybe I'm the same person I always was, and you never bothered to notice." I gestured to my painting, still wet on the canvas. "When was the last time you knew I wanted to paint? When was the last time you asked me what I wanted to do with my day, my week, my life?" He stared at the painting like he'd never seen one before. "You painted in college. That was 40 years ago. 30 years ago. I painted until David was born, and then you said we needed to focus on practical things. You said hobbies could wait until we were more settled financially. You said a lot of things, Robert, and I listened to all of them. I listened so well that I forgot to keep listening to myself. So this is my fault?" The old me would have backtracked, would have soothed his hurt feelings and taken responsibility for his discomfort. The new me just kept adding brushstrokes to my painting. This isn't about fault. This is about the fact that somewhere along the way, I stopped existing as a person and became just a function in everyone else's life. And I'm done with that. Margaret appeared at the end of the dock, carrying her own easel and paint box. She'd become something like a mentor to me over these months, and she had an uncanny ability to show up exactly when I needed support. "Morning, Helen," she called. "Ready for some color mixing practice?" "Almost finished here," I called back, and I meant both the painting and this conversation. Robert watched Margaret set up her easel 30 feet away, close enough to be supportive, but far enough to give us privacy. "You've really built a whole life here." "I have. Without us. Without you depending on me for everything, yes." He was quiet for a long time, watching me paint. The silence wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. It was the silence of someone trying to understand something that challenged everything he thought he knew. "The house is a disaster," he said finally. "I'm sure you'll figure it out. Your daughter is pregnant." My brush paused halfway to the canvas. "Which daughter?" "Jessica. She's been trying to call you. Jessica. My baby. The one who was supposed to graduate law school next year." I felt the familiar tug of maternal worry, the urge to drop everything and rush to her side. But I also felt something new, the knowledge that she was a grown woman who could handle her own life, and that my racing to fix everything might not actually help her grow into the person she needed to become. Is she okay? She's scared. She wants her mother. She wants someone to tell her everything will be fine and handle all the difficult parts for her. There's a difference. "You're really not coming home?" It wasn't a question this time. Robert was finally hearing what I'd been saying. Not the way I was before. Not as the woman who only serves to take care of the cats. If I come home, it will be as a partner, not a service provider. It will be as someone whose dreams and needs matter as much as everyone else's. What does that look like? The question surprised me. In 35 years of marriage, he'd never asked what something would look like for me. "It looks like me keeping this." I gestured to my easel, my paints, my half-finished painting. "It looks like having my own interests, my own friends, my own goals that don't revolve around making everyone else's life convenient." And if I said yes to that? Then we'd have a conversation about what our marriage could become instead of mourning what it used to be. He nodded slowly, still staring at my painting. "You're really good at this." "I always was. You just never looked." That evening, after Robert left to drive back to our old life, I sat in my small motel room and called Jessica. She answered on the first ring, and I could hear the tears in her voice before she said a word. "Mom, where are you? I need you. I'm pregnant and terrified, and Mark doesn't know yet, and I don't know what to do." "Breathe," I said. "Tell me what you're feeling." For the next 2 hours, we talked, really talked. Not about what I could do to fix her situation, but about what she was experiencing, what she wanted, what scared her most. I listened without immediately offering solutions, and something amazing happened. She started finding her own answers. "I think I want to keep the baby," she said near the end of our call. "I think I can finish school and be a mother. It won't be easy, but I think I can do it. I think you can too. Will you come home? Will you help me?" The old me would have been in the car before she finished asking. The new me took a breath and thought about what kind of help would actually serve her best. "I'll come visit when you're ready to tell Mark. I'll be there for the conversation if you want support. But Jessica, this is your life, your choice, your journey. I can't live it for you, and you don't want me to." "I don't? When you were little and learning to ride a bike, what did I do? You ran beside me holding the seat until I was ready, and then you let go. That's what good mothers do. We hold on until you're ready, and then we let go so you can fly. I'm you, scared to fly. That's how you know you're ready." After we hung up, I walked down to the harbor. The moon was full, turning the water silver, and the fishing boats rocked gently at their moorings. I thought about Jessica, about the courage it takes to build a life instead of waiting for someone else to build it for you. I thought about Robert's surprise at discovering I had friends, had interests, had become someone he didn't recognize. Thought about David's note, the one that had started this whole journey. She only serves to take care of the cats anyway. He'd been right in a way. That's exactly what I'd become. But sitting here in this place where I'd rediscovered myself, where I'd learned to matter to myself again, I realized his cruelty had been a gift. It had woken me up before it was too late. My phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. "The gallery downtown wants to feature local artists next month. You should submit something. Your harbor paintings are beautiful." A gallery. My art hanging on walls where strangers might see it, might connect with it, might find something in it that spoke to them. 6 months ago, the idea would have terrified me. Tonight, it felt like the next natural step in becoming who I was, meant to be. I walked back to my room and looked at the paintings I'd created over these months. Harbors and sunsets, flowers and fishing boats, but also something else. Light. Hope. The visual record of a woman learning to see herself clearly for the first time in decades. In the morning, I would choose 3 pieces for the gallery. I would call Jessica back and plan a visit that supported her growth instead of enabling her dependence. I would think seriously about Robert's question and what a marriage between equals might look like. But tonight, I sat with my watercolors and painted something new. Not the harbor or the sunset or any external landscape. I painted a woman's hands holding a paintbrush, creating something beautiful. I painted my own hands, strong and capable and creative. Hands that had spent decades serving others and were finally learning to serve dreams as well. When I finished, I wrote a letter to David. Not angry, not hurt, just honest. "Dear son," I wrote, "you were right. For many years, I did only serve to take care of the cats, and the house, and the laundry, and everyone's schedules, and all the invisible work that made everyone else's lives possible. I served until I disappeared, until I forgot that service without choice isn't love, it's erasure. Your note was cruel, but it was also true, and sometimes we need cruel truths to wake us up. I'm awake, now. I'm still your mother, but I'm also a painter, a friend, a woman with dreams and needs and a life that belongs to me. I hope someday you'll meet this version of me and like her as much as I'm learning to. Love, Mom." I didn't send the letter, not yet, but writing it felt like drawing a line between who I'd been and who I was becoming. It felt like forgiveness, not of David or Robert or the years of being taken for granted, but of myself for letting it happen for so long. 3 weeks later, my paintings hung in the Millbrook Gallery, small, rectangles of light and color that represented the most authentic work I'd ever done. The opening reception was packed with locals and tourists, wine glasses clinking and conversations flowing around images I'd created with my own hands. Robert came. I hadn't expected him to, but there he was, standing in front of my painting of the morning harbor, studying it like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "It's beautiful," he said when I joined him. "Thank you. I never knew you could do this." "I never knew either. I'd forgotten." He turned to look at me, really look at me, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in years: curiosity, interest, like he was seeing me for the first time instead of seeing the familiar outline of the woman who made his life function. "I've been thinking about what you said, about being partners instead of what we were. And I think I'd like to try, if you're willing to teach me." "Teach you what?" "How to see you. How to be married to a person instead of married to a function." I looked around the gallery at my paintings on the walls, at Sarah and Margaret and Linda chatting with strangers about art and life and the courage it takes to start over. I looked at Robert, trying in his awkward way to build a bridge across 35 years of taking me for granted. "It would mean things changing," I said. "Really changing, not just for a few weeks until things go back to normal." "I don't think normal exists anymore. I think we have to build something new." "Are you ready for that?" He looked again at my painting, at the way I'd captured light, dancing on water, at evidence of a part of me he'd never bothered to discover. "I think I have to be, because the alternative is losing you completely, and I'm starting to understand that I never really knew what I was losing until now." 6 months later, I moved back home, but not as the woman who'd left. I came back as an artist with a studio in what used to be the guest room. I came back as a wife who painted 3 mornings a week and took trips to Millbrook Cove whenever I needed to remember who I was. I came back as a mother who offered support instead of solutions, who let her adult children figure out their own lives while remaining available for love and guidance when asked. Jessica had her baby, a beautiful girl she named Hope. When I visited, I didn't take over. I didn't reorganize her kitchen or criticize her choices or immediately start making lists of what needed to be fixed. I held my granddaughter and marveled at how something so perfect could come from something so messy and uncertain and brave. David apologized, really apologized, for the note that had changed everything, but I thanked him instead. "You woke me up," I told him. "Sometimes that's the greatest gift someone can give you, even when they don't mean to." The cats still needed feeding, but now Robert shared that responsibility. The house still needed cleaning, but now everyone who lived in it participated in keeping it functional. I still cooked dinner sometimes, but because I enjoyed it, not because it was expected. And sometimes, when the light was particularly beautiful on the kitchen window, I would set up my easel right there in the middle of my old life and paint the way hope looks when it's mixed with morning sunshine. Because I'd learned that a woman can serve love and serve dreams at the same time, as long as she never stops serving herself first. The woman who only served to take care of the cats was gone. In her place was someone I was still getting to. No, someone who mattered to herself as much as she mattered to others. Someone who'd learned that the most important person to love and value and take care of was the one looking back at her from the mirror every morning. Someone who'd finally come home to herself.